Hi, everyone. Welcome to the nightly restorative check-in via the National Parents Union. I am Dr. Enjolie Lafaurie. It is March 26th. I don't even know where the time goes. We're like a quarter finished, over a quarter completed with this year. And spring is starting. I want to acknowledge the equinox that occurred on the 20th. I hope that you guys are feeling good. We had a rainy not rainy, cloudy morning here in Arizona, and I was hoping for rain, but now the sun's out. So although that's a good thing, here in the desert, we really appreciate when we can have some rain. So as I said, I'm in Arizona. I am on Autumn territory, this beautiful Sonoran desert. The nightly restorative check-in, for any of you who are new to the show, is actually the brainchild of our guest today, or one of our two guests today, Marisol Quevedo Rerucha. I tell a story of what I think the nightly restorative check-in is, but I will have to check with Marisol and see if this is what she intended it to be. When I think of Friday, I think about what I want to be doing on a Friday evening. So I want to chill. I want some good food. I want to be able to talk to the people that I care about the most. And I want long, luxurious conversation where we don't have to be thinking about what we're doing the next day, and we can truly check in with one another. So our hope, right, is that everyone gets to relax and connect and experience that social emotional check-in via this show. Originally, a year ago now, and Pew's just over a year old, Marisol brought me on when she was hosting this show on her own, and then I began hosting it on Fridays. So for those of you, again, who are new, she hosts a show on Mondays and Wednesdays. You can catch her and catch me on Fridays. But she brought me on because I'm a psychologist and a hypnotherapist, and I introduced a breath pattern titled 478, that both she and I use at the beginnings of the show. Today, y'all, is one of those days where I'm so tired that I wish somebody could do the exercise for me. But it's okay. I'm one more hour, and then the weekend's going to start, and I'm just going to try to chill out. So 478. The way that it goes is you inhale for 4 seconds. You really want to try to inhale for that entire 4-second count. You hold your breath for 7 seconds, and then you exhale for 8 seconds. Same thing, really extending your breath for that 8 seconds. It's a little bit of holding your breath and releasing it at the same time. The first time I did this, it was uncomfortable. It was very difficult. But after the second time, I mastered it, and then this breath pattern has become my bread and butter. I use it as I transition in and out from one meeting to the next. It's Marisol and other folks use it to get back to sleep. So if you wake up in the middle of the night, I have done that before. Thankfully, knock on wood, I'm a pretty decent sleeper, so I don't have as much need for that at that time of night. But so we do 4, 7, 8, and we do that 4 times around. I will count it out for you. I encourage you all to close your eyes, right? So you're not visually distracted, or pick a focal point if you can't close your eyes. And then if at any point you get lost, just go back to your normal breath pattern and then just pick back up on the 4 count. All right. Let me pull my energy back in. So I'm going to encourage you to kind of get set, do whatever you need to do to get your body relaxed. Go ahead and take a natural breath, breathing in through your nose, releasing through your nose or your mouth. And on this next inhalation, take it in for 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Release. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Inhale. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Release. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Inhale. 3, 2, 1. Hold. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Release. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Inhale. 3, 2, 1. Hold. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, release. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Go back to your natural breath. I keep promising this one of these days. I'm just going to devote a show to like talking about the breath pattern. In fact, I'm going to bring on a guest who taught me the breath pattern. But I hope that you feel good. What I really hope is that your body has entered a relaxation response. Maybe that your shoulders dropped, maybe that you yawned at the end, maybe your stomach gargled, maybe a little kind of your eyes got a little wet. All those things indicate that you've hit a relaxation response. Even though I didn't do it, I can tell right now just by leading you through this, my speaking rate has slowed down. So all these good little indicators, right, that we're relaxed. Okay, let me just finish telling you about myself, and then we have a full board of guests. I'm so excited to bring them on. So I've talked about who I am professionally. I really want to orient you though to who I am personally, and also who I am as far as my community goes. So I'm originally from Southern California. My father is Afro-Cuban, or was Afro-Cuban, so we're Taino and Arawak. My mom is from Guatemala, the city of Guatemala, actually. So we're Maya. I am a mom. I have a 21-year-old daughter. Some of you have seen my 2 siblings on the show. They are some of my first guests. I'm also a member of the Siwa Patli Collective. So that is an organization based out of Phoenix. We focus on supporting Indigenous families. We like to say that we support Indigenous mothers from womb to tomb. And you have seen so many of my comadres on this show because they're amazing, badass women. Okay, so last thing, I always want to encourage you to become a member of the National Parents Union. Please go to our website. For my colleagues that are watching, if you all want to throw the information in the chat, that'd be amazing. If not, when there's a little pause, I'll do that. It's a good way for you to get informed of all the things that are happening with the National Parents Union. Okay. And so now I'll get to bring on, I'm going to just at least say their names and bring on the guests. They will introduce themselves. So we're going to have Marisol Quevedo Rerucha on this show. She wrote a book, and we are going to have her contributing authors on the show as well. So let me introduce Marisol Quevedo Rerucha. We're going to introduce Dr. Carolyn Gery and Pedro Terrazas. Welcome, everyone, jumping onto the show here. Let me orient everyone. Okay, everybody good? Yes, good. You're all like, who speaks first? Everybody's good. All right. So, when there are so many people on the show, it is much easier for us to all introduce ourselves, right? Marisol, I'm gonna ask you to start with yourself. Although people know you, right? Introduce yourself, introduce the book really quickly, and then we'll jump to Carolyn and then Pedro.
This is the first time that the 4 of us are together.
It is. Like, hello, I want to shake your guys' hands. Like,
and I get that knot in my throat when I get emotional. And I think that I'm just so blessed to have each of you in my life, and I'm so blessed that that you trust me, that you love me, that you're on this journey with me, and that you gave of yourself, not just to make the book happen, right? But that each of you give of yourselves so much to our people, to our community, to our kids. And the honor of that, of each of you individually being in my life and being who you are, is just, I'm so beyond blessed. So I think I'm going to introduce myself as somebody who is just blessed in this life to have such beautiful friendships and relationships and family. And the book that this book, I think for me is really, I have it here, it's a gift. I realize it's a gift of love. and the restorative way, the restorative walk, the way of being, you know, like love isn't easy. And it's also like it's a work of faith in humanity and hope. So that's all I got for you at this moment.
Nice. Well, okay, hold on. Hold up the book because that's why we're here. And mine has not come in yet. And it's Beyond the Surface of Restorative Practices. Yay. And hold on, I want to say myself, I'm so excited when I see the friends we have in common that are like tagging you with their book, you know, in hand. That's so exciting. Okay, thank you, Marisol. Carolyn, let's have you introduce yourself.
Okay. So actually it is so exciting to be all together. Pedro, I feel like I know you because, you know, I started like reading your words when Marisol and I first started to talk about, you know, this work that you did together, and just now I get to meet you. It's interesting because I feel like I already know you. So really excited. So hello, everybody. I have also been blessed to have been a part of Marisol's life for a bit here, and really excited to be here. I live in Colorado Springs, but I actually grew up in San Diego, and went to school there, and then taught in Kauai, and then made my way to Berkeley and landed here in Colorado Springs. And I always love how, Enjolie, like you started with kind of grounding us in you know, who you are connected to. And I know Marisol has always taught me kind of about that. So I am the mother of a wonderful daughter, Kiriana McNerney, and the wife of Joe McNerney. And my mother lives just around the corner. We moved her out with us. I like to say I come from a line of very like strong women. I grew up with only women. I feel like we were like a band of four between my grandmother and my mom and my sister lives with us now. And so I always feel like that very strong connection there to family. And I love how that introduction happens. So very excited to be here. I work at the university here, and I'm now working in public health also. And I've been in K-12 for a long time.
Great. Thank you, Carolyn. So nice to meet you this way. You know, I think we've had one or two interactions before, but this is probably like the most significant amount of time that we've had to be able to speak and talk to one another.
Yes.
Pedro, I feel like you and I probably have some similar friends. So like later we're gonna have to do like, do you know this person? Do you know that person? And Marisol is always telling me like, do you know Pedro? And I'm like, I don't. So anyway, Pedro, please introduce yourself and thank you so much for jumping in.
Oh, good afternoon, you guys. Thank you again. It was such a wonderful treat to be here in this space with you, sharing. Before anything, I want to just acknowledge the ancestors of this land that we reside on here, the Kumeyaay people. My name is Pedro Terrazas. You know, good afternoon to each and every one of you. Carolyn, Dr. Lafaurie, Marisol, sis, how you doing? Good to see you. You know, thank you again for having us. And I just wanted to, acknowledge our ancestors like that in a good way. And my name, a little bit myself, my name is Pedro, and my mom is Antonia Terrazas, and we represent here the natives of the Morongo Valley, Desert Hot Springs area. And then my dad is from Durango. His name is Jose Cruz Terrazas, and we represent the Taino, the Tepehuano. I heard Taino earlier, Tepehuano Nation of Durango. And so that's how I came to be here. I have a family. My wife, Lucila, they're from Morelia. They represent the Purepecha Nation. And my children, Ezekiel, Eshemen, adopted Cheyenne, and my daughter, Viana Monet. And I'm a high school educator here in Chula Vista. I thought it was really unique and very cool that there's something that there's something in common, right? A common denominator amongst us all. We all have some type of tie to Southern California, to this native land, and I thought that was beautiful, right then and there. Like, oh, that's cool. In this very moment, in this space, we all have something already that we have in common, right? And so I know that Dr. Lafaurie too, you have some close probably relatives. We just probably missed each other, right? Maybe in a circle, maybe in a ceremony, maybe somewhere, maybe we just missed each other. So it's good to know that. And Carolyn, thank you too. I've been anxiously awaiting this opportunity to meet you. But that's who I am, and that's what I do. I'm a high school educator here, resource teacher. I represent restorative practices in the public school systems. I mean, what can I say? You know, I'm very blessed to be in this space here, sharing this moment with my sister here. You know, this is, you know, I have nothing but gratitude and just, you know, good energy to be here. So thank you guys.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing in like ceremony with your words, con tu palabra, you know? I can feel it. And Marisol, I feel like I can sense like the amount of emotion that you must feel, you know, seeing all of us kind of feel how close we are to you, you know, and that like, oh, this circle is, you know, complete, right? We have to have a party when the world opens. Yes, in California, no less, because of the connection that you highlighted, Pedro. Okay, Marisol, tell us about the book, and I don't mean tell us the back cover of the book. So I really like, with the four of us here who are expressive, are writers, I want to challenge us to like get to the heart. So Marisol, I want to know, why did you write this book? Like, what is the heart reason, the why, the legacy piece that this book is going to leave?
There's a lot wrong. There's a lot wrong in our society. There's a lot wrong in our systems. And I think I'll just speak right now from the lens of education. And I think that the implications of this book go into any type of organization or system. Our country being stolen, this country, this land, you know, that when we talk about it, America was born out of rape and murder, and there's blood that we don't like to acknowledge, and it then created these systems of oppression because of white supremacy, and the systems that are meant to keep us apart as people. And, you know, we talk about like race being a social construct, right? And there's a reason for that, because it can keep us divided. And in education, because of this oppression, it has created generational trauma and inequity that has resulted in not just the academic disparities that I think feed into, and specifically with, we see the greatest disparities with our Black male students, followed by our Indigenous and our Latinx students, and males predominantly. So the result of that generational trauma and inequity has led to these academic disparities, the very real school to prison pipeline, the high number of suspensions and expulsions of our students that push them then into that system, which also results in poverty, which results in mental, emotional, and physical health being unhealthy. And so all of this, and I'm very grateful to Father Greg Boyle, because he gave me this quote from Mother Teresa. All of this, I've realized, equals a lack of peace. When we have inequity, when we have this division, we're not in peace. And Mother Teresa says, when there is no peace, or the reason why there is no peace is because we have forgotten that we belong to each other. And restorative practices, this way of being, not just the thing that you do, but the way of being, brings us back to ourselves, and ultimately brings us back to that understanding and connection to each other in our humanity. And I think it also brings us back to our mother, to earth, to the animals, to all of the things that we are responsible for. And so really the why is around, like, this is a way, by connecting back within and connecting between in a very human, loving way, that we can begin to heal this oppression, this trauma, all of these inequities, and start to transform our systems. And this work really also goes beyond just the work. Like, this is the work of self. This is the work of our families. This is the work that with our colleagues, with the adults in the room, and then the work of our kids and our communities. And Pedro's the one who, like, so clearly, I don't know if you remember, Pedro, but you told me one time, you said, if everything is not okay at home, if we're not okay, if our spouse or our partner isn't okay, if our kids are not okay, we have no business going out and trying to do this work and trying to do either to serve. So that's in any kind of a field that like education, anything. You have no right to go out and try to help other people if your home is not okay, and try to have an impact out there. And I think that's where it really begins. So for me, that's the heart of the book. Like that's the message. And when I talk, earlier I said, like, I really feel it is about faith and humanity and hope. And with love, like really loving yourself, really loving your partner, loving your children, loving your family, loving humanity. That is the hardest thing in the world, because it means doing that, like, it means delving into your pain, into those things about yourself that are not that you want, that are not okay, that are harmful either to yourself or to other people. And it also means, like, in relationships, like holding that bar. I say, I feel like we strive to be the best version of ourselves. In our work is figuring out and identifying and dealing with and working with what's keeping us from being the best version of ourselves. And that includes as parents, that includes as partners. So that's the stuff of, like, our ego, our issues of control, our self-esteem, all of those things. And I think if we can start to, like, be honest with ourselves and vulnerable and authentically look at our stuff, then we can start to really change the world. So that is my long answer to your very short question.
It's no need to excuse the long answer. I think that is a really important reason to write a book. That's a really important legacy, to leave. Because that's how I think about this book, Marisol. Like, no, I'm not ready to lose you. But, like, I see this as being your legacy. I see this as being the culmination of so much of your work, and you will do so much more. But I feel like this one's always going to be, like, really special, because it's your first book, but for all the reasons that you just stated right now, because you put so much into this book, you brought so many teachings into this book. You were really strategic and thoughtful about how you birthed it. And I'm using that word on purpose, and I know you know why. So yeah, I just want to make space for that. And actually, let me not be cagey about that. So Marisol and I, a year ago, isn't that crazy? A year ago, we were in Teotihuacan, and you had a really strong reaction to one of the experiences on the pyramid, where we compared it to, you've said this, you compared it to birth, right? And you birthed so many things in this year. And I think this book is just one more of those, an example of one of the things that you birthed.
Well, and one thing I want to say also is that, like, this life, like, you can't, like, nothing, like, we don't do it alone. And so, like, yes, like, my name is on the cover, right? But this is also a part of each of you. Like, asking each of you to join me on the journey, and you agreeing to be on the journey with me. Part of that is because, like, I don't ever pretend to have all the answers. I don't have them. And what I've recognized and what I've learned in life is that, like, the magic to those answers, to their work, it has to do with having more, like, having people that you trust and that you love and that will push back on you, like, in the mix. And so having each of you bring a unique gift and a lens is also, I think, what I really am proud of in this work. And that's something that I think is really important as we move forward and talk about the book. I know that my name is on the book, but I feel like, what I should have done is just put all of our last names, because that was part of the issue, was, like, we don't want to have all the names on there. So it could have been, like, Rerucha, Terrazas, Gery, Lafaurie. And then,
and then there wouldn't have been enough space for the heart. For the Yes. Thank you. Thank you for being so generous and giving. And I'm glad that that you get top billing because you deserve it. So let's kind of bring in Carolyn and Pedro here. Carolyn, your chapter, from what I understand, is on trauma, right? And I know that that is your area of specialty. So can you kind of just give us a sense of, quick synopsis of how trauma relates to restorative practices and how you were trying to connect to this topic?
Yes. And so I think that, to really relate this, I have to go back to the time that Marisol and I really first met, which was about 10 years or so, I believe, ago. We were both fellows, education fellows for the National Council of Raza, which is now Unidos, US. And we had some, just coming together and talking about the work around alternative education and just kind of our beliefs and what we were kind of working on in our worlds. There was that connection immediately, and it just ran very, very deep. And it's continued over the years, and it's continued to be, around just understanding how we address what Marisol so elegantly spoke about, just this massive need for transformative change at a very deep level to face up to, the systemic oppression that drives so much of the challenges, and that it also stands in the way, really, of that belonging truly to each other because of these false barriers that have been put in play. And so our lives have kind of intersected, throughout this work. And about a year or so ago, I found myself in a place of change, like kind of leaving one world and going to the next and trying to figure out kind of like what next. And that was like at that point in time, right just before the pandemic hit, where Marisol was really speaking about the work with Pedro, the work on this book, and it really connected to what I had seen and understood to be in my work as a school leader. And when I was leading a K-8 school, we were noticing a lot of things in terms of our capacity to really get our arms around what the needs were of our students, of our families, of our community, and of our staff. And this was something that really wasn't taught in teacher education. And so we were really starting kind of from just a different space to hold these conversations. And it was that time working in that area that I started to create some connections to some of the trauma that our children were experiencing at a very early age over, a long period of time, and then talking with family members. And it was the trauma that they were experiencing within their communities, right? And just the systems that they were, coming up against, and seeing how that played out in what we kind of call school, and how we look at things like achievement, and how we look at things like what is considered to be success. And we started to create kind of our own way of understanding success in our world. And that meant connecting with families in a very real way, that they stayed with us over time. Right, that they would trust us over time, which in this area, they didn't have that trust in the educational experiences that they'd had, right? They didn't feel like they belonged there. And so really trying to figure out that connection between what happens when you're constantly in that state of anxiousness and stress, how exhaustion plays into that, and what that looks like when you're a 5-year-old, a 7-year-old, an 8-year-old, up to, an educator, a teacher, because we all bring our stress and our sense of self with us where we go, right? And that definitely plays into our ability to connect and create connections. And so it was amazing to be able to think through, if I have a message in a chapter to really talk about and relate to, then it's really the work that we learned as a school community along the way in understanding trauma and understanding how to build some structures around belonging in our school, and what that meant. First, understanding, coming from the self, what you bring to that space, especially if, as I was a school leader, white, with a different set of experiences and privilege within this world and navigating it. And so that's like step one, is to examine that in a very real way, and having those conversations. So being able to talk a bit about that and what that means, and how that impacts this work, was a unique opportunity. Plus, at certain points, and I guess Pedro, like you guys were engaged with this same work too, and I'm sure Enjolie, but it was that connection with Marisol on a day-to-day. Sometimes that was my grounding in this space as I started to pull it apart. Because sometimes you go through as a professional and you're working and you have these beliefs, but you don't rarely have time to sit with it and examine it and just pull everything apart from it to see and lift out like what the true impact was of those experiences on your life and continue to be and play out. So
thank you. Yes. And I hear you on like having the time to kind of sit with the work. I know that we all had different amounts of time or came into the book at different times. And I really feel that you and Pedro, you were really there to shape, the origins of the book. And so that must have been so special, to feel and see like how each piece came together. I was brought in a little bit later and that was fine. That was perfect, but I can imagine what it was to like see and watch Marisol kind of go through this and then have her bring you in to contribute your parts, so thanks for your contributions. Pedro, I wanted to bring you in as well, right? So let's talk about your contributions as an educator. And yes, y'all, I muted you just because we were getting some feedback, so you're gonna have to unmute yourselves. To talk about your contributions, yes, and how they relate to restorative practices.
Yeah, it's been just the kind of like it's been such a beautiful prayer to see like manifest into the reality of this book, and so when I began this journey with my sister, and she talked about it, she had that idea, and she invited me on this journey with her. I told her, let me think about it, let me pray about it, and ceremonial way I took care of that, and used tobacco in a good way to have the very best intentions, and asked for that permission from Creator to be able to to contribute this in this project the best way I know how. And so that's how it was birthed. Use that word. I like the way you refer to it as a birthing of this prayer, and as it's manifesting now into something bigger, right? And then two, as you mentioned, that the first book she's written, because there's going to be more, right? There's going to be sequels to this, and so it's just wonderful to be a part of that. I always share that that my beliefs and my philosophy of this restorative way, this restorative practice, this restorative philosophy, it's what we eat and breathe. It's how we live our lives, right? It's not something we do or an activity that we partake in. It's how I treat my children. It's how I talk to my wife. It's how I address my parents. It's how I treat my children at school. And that's the whole idea. That's that spark we talk about, in the ceremony, this way, that Olin, that something in the universe started all from a spark, right? And so I always refer to it that way, how it manifests into something positive. And so along the lines too, I always talk about this to my colleagues, because they really try to, I think, put a name on it and a structure to it. And really, it's real simple. It's really simple. It's not something that should be structured. At some point in time, whatever background, whatever culture, whatever our indigenous ties are, at some point in time, our elders, 7 generations before us, at some point in time, they gathered around some spark, some fire, right, and discussed things in a diplomatic, right, articulate way, and understood each other's and said, hey, look, there's an issue in our community. Let's sit down in a circle, right, and let's discuss this. And that's brought us to where we are now. And so I think it's giving a little bit of history and acknowledging it as a ceremony. For me, it became easy just to kind of, just to understand and really and enjoy as I do my work at the high school that I work here in Chula Vista. And so it's wonderful to see things like this, my contributions about what I do at work, and being able to share them with other fellow educators, other parents. For me, it's a treat. So I'm just I like to just keep it that way. It's real simple for me. I'm a parent, I'm an educator. I love to teach, and I appreciate the work that, Carolyn does and Marisol, especially with, trauma informed care. I'm also responsible for our social emotional learning on campus, and that's has a direct, tie to everything we're doing restoratively. And so, there's that balance. You can't have one without the other. So I think that we're addressing these, this generational trauma that Marisol talks about, too. And then it's benefiting our children for 7 generations to come, and so it's like that for me. I utilize what I know ceremonially, and I kind of inject it into what I do on my daily basis, and that's how I go about it, and so I was just that was how how I could contribute the best way I knew how for a sister here, and just to encourage her. I felt like those meetings that we had, every Saturday morning at 5:30, 6 o'clock, we were in ceremony, and we were taking care of each other, and we were addressing these traumas that we're talking about, these generational traumas, right? And so we're stopping them, right? We're preventing them from passing them down to our children and their children's children. And so going back to the authors of this book, if we had to put a name on it, the names wouldn't fit, because we have to talk about the 7 generations before us, all of our families, all of our grandmas, all of our grandpas, so I like to acknowledge them too that way. So yeah,
Wow.
Thank you.
That's so beautiful and so true. And I'm hearing how, these two of us were in ceremony with you, Marisol, throughout different phases of this book. And I'm sure, I've seen Carolyn's work. I'm sure that there was some sort of ritual and ceremonial aspect to the things that you all have done. Ceremony and ritual take on so many different ways, and they're very much so represented, in this book, right? And even birth, right? I intentionally use that word because birth is its own ceremony, right? That's a lot of what the collective works on and talks about. Let me talk about my contribution really fast, just because we're here. It's weird to be the interviewer and the interviewee. So let me talk to this hand. Okay. So anyway, so I wrote a chapter on active listening, and I'm a psychologist by trade. At the time when I was writing the book, I was a professor at a community college, and I taught courses like psychology of culture and psychology of gender. And I really framed my chapter around this idea of, literally the world we've been living in for this past political administration. And as different presidents, as different political and current events occurred, they were also related to my classroom, and it felt scary sometimes. Of how are we going to take young adults, into a conversation on all of the things that are occurring in the world, and not make it feel like the bomb that that was my fear, that would feel like a bomb in the classroom, right? Because that's what was occurring online, right? I feel like it's quieted a little bit, but for the past several years, we all know that on social media, it's been people not listening to one another. And if I went back to my trade, to my professional trade of how do I get people to converse and listen to one another, regardless of the issue, regardless of the ism, regardless of racism, sexism, homophobia, anything, was if people don't talk to one another and listen to one another, we're not going to get anywhere, right? So that was my contribution, as far as kind of some of the techniques that I teach in the class that I use to kind of guide the entire class, and how that is helpful to kind of walk us through some of these most difficult conversations. And I appreciate, being able to connect that to what Pedro shared of it goes back to simple things. It goes back to basic respect. It goes back to listening to one another, and recognizing that, I think a key piece of that, often when we listen deeply, we're going to figure out that we probably share similar values, but the way that we think that they should be executed is where we differ, right? But if we can find that entry point of no, you love your family, you love your country, you want to eat, you want other people to eat. Most people don't say, I don't want another person to eat, There's some ways that they restrict people, but their intention is not for other folks to not eat, they just have thoughts about how we should go about that. So again, that was my contribution. I wanted to, and thank you all for the comments that are coming in. I'm, trying to manage that all and kind of pass them along the screen. I wanted you all to talk about what it was like for you to write this book. And so, Marisol, I actually want to start with you because for a couple of reasons. Two, it is no small thing to write a book. It is no small thing at all. I hope that you're not jaded by the fact that you work with a publishing company, but it is something to be highlighted. And writing a book is hard. Writing a dissertation is hard. Doing all those things are hard. And there are a lot of challenges that come into the process. So I want you to speak to whatever part of that you'd like to.
I have to start with this. I'm one of those people that if I say I'm going to do something, then it is very important to me that I do it. And it has, in that context, there's been very few times in my life that que no he cumplido, that I haven't done what I say that I'm going to do. And there, I had worked with this team to open a charter school, and it didn't happen. And there was a piece of me that felt like I had failed. There was an understanding that I had, though I really understand things happen exactly as they should. And there was so much learning in that process. And there was so much beauty in that process. And I honor that and I respect that. But I am also a human being. And, writing the book, making the decision to write it, and then being on the journey of it, it was a long process. And I think part of the reason why the process was so long is that I also struggle with my self-esteem. I struggle with believing in myself. And so the idea of, I think, being worthy to be seen as somebody that could write a book or should write a book or any of those things, I had to struggle through it. And I think each of you came on that journey. I'm very much who I am. I am exactly who I am. And I am who I am with anybody that I encounter. And I say that because I share, I know I'm struggling. I know what the issue is, but I'm still having it. And each of you, I think, came along at different points of that journey. And what I've realized, and I'm going to say, because of each of you, and it was so beautiful last week. My dad's older sister, who's in her 80s, her granddaughter sent me a video of her, and she was reading the book, and she said, "Oh, she used our name, the maiden name Quevedo. She uses Quevedo. That's my name." And then she sent me a picture, and the joy and pride that she had. I realized this work, this is not about me. It's what Pedro talked about. It's about my ancestors. It's about the people that have prayed for me that never even touched me. It's about the honor that I have to be able to do the work that I do. That is not about me. I am a vessel. And it's about the future. It's about my grandchildren and their children and their grandchildren. And so that, coming through this whole process of the book and getting here, that is a really beautiful understanding, because it has allowed me to really enjoy and take in the experience of this. So getting out of my way with my self-esteem, with my things, like I talked about earlier, my issues, my things, my work, and just allowing this to be and recognize this is so much more than the four of us. And what an honor that we were able to bring this to life. And when you talk about the ceremony of this birth, Pedro and I legit, when he agreed to be with me, and he said every Saturday morning was a ceremony between us. And then there came the time when that time was done. And how beautiful to have spent for months every Saturday with him. And then there came the time when Carolyn and I were talking every single day. And we were in that ceremony every single day. and then able to like finish off that component. And Enjolie, you and I have a standing meeting every single week where we spend a minimum of an hour together. That's always the goal. But that's another thing, is that we have also, that time that we've committed to being and pouring together are a part of the birth journey, you know?
Absolutely.
So that's what I have right now.
Thank you. Thank you. And I'm glad, I thank you for being so vulnerable and so transparent, because I think Marisol, you are so strong, right? People, when you said you are who you are, people see your strength, right? And so I think it would be hard for some people to conceive of the fact that I watched you struggle, through this writing. We all did, right? And we all held you, and were, kind of, I'm sure, wish like, oh, Marisol, there's so much there, there's so much there that we're so happy that you were able to bring out. And I know for me, I just wish that it wouldn't have been so challenging, but I honor that we can hold those two spaces, emotional spaces and cognitive spaces at the same time, right? We can be awesome at our job and get the words out, and we can still be writing it and kind of feeling like, is this good? Is it going to be accepted? Who am I to say it? And you and I shared with you at different points of like, I felt the same exact way of like, what am I writing? Why am I writing it? Do people really want this? Am I going to mess up Marisol's book, right? Did I mess up Marisol's book? So all this imposter syndrome stuff, right? And all this hiding, and, and that's a part of all the things you opened up the show with. It's a process of colonization, right? It's a part of all of the isms that we're fighting for us to doubt ourselves and to not be able to kind of step forth. So I just want to honor everything that you went through, and thank you for sharing it so that others can connect to that. Pedro and Carolyn, whoever, one at a time, whoever wants to share first. What was it like for you, right, to write your portion, kind of support Marisol through this as well?
Do you mind if I share, Carolyn? Hearing your sister talk about this, about your journey, I think that, putting a time frame on anything, right? I don't think it's restorative, right? First of all, because we put a lot of pressure on ourselves as far as deadlines and completing things. And this is a prayer. This is something that my uncle always tells me, you want to make creator laugh, tell them your plans, And so I think that we in our beginning meetings, sister talked about a past, a journey that she, embarked on, and didn't give her the results that she wanted in that moment. Not to say that she won't accomplish that prayer. And we were kind of like, I think, healing, both of us at the same time when we began this, because I had, the year prior to that, I believe, or the semester prior to that, I had began a journey in school side administration. I was assistant principal at my high school. And, I had a wonderful experience. I gave birth to and life to a restorative practice program, self-contained program at our high school. And it brought wonderful results that, I have to just acknowledge, because we, simply did away with the punitive punishments, and it brought our suspension rate down by 35%. It brought in the community, it brought in more communication with parents. We had students communicating with teachers in ways we never thought, right, possible. And it was just a wonderful, journey. So in my mind, in my heart, I prayed, I thought, wow, if I could do this, in this moment, in this time that I've been given, imagine what I can do in other, administrative positions. And so the following semester, I wasn't picked up again. And so I felt defeated. I felt like, man, I don't have what it takes to be an administrator, I guess, And so we were both kind of in a crossroads, right? We had met crossroads in our life where we had been kind of felt defeated, like, oh wow, I guess I'm not meant to do this type of work. But it's so untrue, because the work we did together, those meetings that we had together, those ceremonies where we were engaged, just sharing each other's prayers and thoughts and emotions, we were doing restorative work on each other, like. And that's the most beautiful thing about this book, that it was created out of love, emotion, trauma, defeat, all of these feelings, right? And so I mean, and look at the the outcome. This beautiful, wonderful book was produced with the help of Carolyn and Enjolie. It's just like, I can't say enough about it. But the work we did, like I said, going back to, it's not what you do. What restorative practice is not what you do or how you sit in a circle or the activities you produce. It's but how you live your life and how you go about it, and how we dealt with trauma was by creating these putting these words on paper and fulfilling that prayer, manifesting it, seeing it, guiding it, being patient with Creator, and not really rushing it. And sometimes we would meet almost every week, but there were times where I would just say, sis, I can't meet today. It was seldomly ever we always met, but there were times when I just didn't feel in my heart that I could sit down and give my all, because I was occupied with some things from work or the family. And as sis was saying, I've along my journey on this red road, and my education, my family, and my career, that's one of the things that I was taught by my elders, is to, nephew, people are going to ask for your help. They're going to ask you to support them, different states, different places, different ceremonies, different ways. But if you're not centered, if not everything is how it's supposed to be in your home, you can't go out and try to help somebody else. You have to take care of your family first. Everything's in order. Everything's in place. Kids are healthy. Relationship with your wife is good. Go ahead. Go pray for somebody else. But until everything's centered in your home, just stay put. Fix it. So that's what we did. We stayed put and we fixed it, and we fixed ourselves at the same time. So, I think that's the most beautiful thing that I get out of this journey, is that we healed, from some defeats, both of us individually in our lives together. And so that's part of the restorative, practice.
Thank you, Pedro. Yes, absolutely. And I think, as you're talking, I'm thinking about also, when people talk about a book, right, they're describing the content, right? And I think how beautiful it is for us to be able to talk about what it was like to write in relationship to one another, especially Marisol. These are the conversations that I think we don't often have, that don't center the relationship, So Carolyn, I'm going to give you the opportunity to talk about what it was like to write for this book, and then also, again, how that impacted your relationship with Marisol.
Yes. Boy, like Pedro, when you were talking about the healing piece of it, I mean, I too was coming from a place where I felt like, I'd left my work. I had so much of my value that had been tied to my work. There was a lot of loss, and it wasn't a good feeling. I felt this thorough sense of failure on a very personal level. And I thought that somehow things would come in to place right away. I don't know why. And that wasn't the way that it was meant to be. I needed to stop in my life for a long time. and really, there's a lot of things that I had not sat with. I've gone through my own trauma, and I kept moving forward. And like you said too, about making sure everything is well with your health, with your family, with your home, right? I just kept going. And so it essentially caught up with me. And so it's one thing to really you start to examine, you start to learn, and you start to engage with the research, for example, around trauma, and you can't but not start to then recognize that within yourself, as a very real piece. And then you start to tease it out. And I started to do that, understanding my family on a deeper level, understanding my mother, understanding my grandmother on a much deeper level. And it is that healing with somebody else. It's that healing and that walking together. And sometimes we would, because we were living in the not Zoom or whatever world it was for a bit, and we would connect for that day. And sometimes it would be I'm tired. My heart is tired today. Can we not write, but can we just be with each other today? Just be, and I really feel like that was my lifeline over this last year. And to see your name over that heart, Marisol, is just like, it's just beautiful. So sorry.
No, please don't apologize. It is beautiful, and your heart is beautiful for Marisol, and we all share in it, and it is. And we all know Marisol's heart, and so let's talk. We have like zero time, but because we brought up the heart, can you actually talk about the cover of the book? Because I remember how excited you were. Why that cover?
When you first, I don't know, way back 45 minutes ago, way back when, time's funny now, like, and Pedro reinforced it, like, this is an act of love. And I think that living life is an act of love. And for me, that symbol, that connection is the heart. And I think, the reason why I love the anatomical heart is because it can be kind of scary to look at. It can be, sometimes, like, when you look at an amethyst, there's something really beautiful, but it can also be grotesque. But the heart, it's the center. It's what keeps us alive. And when I talk about love, like, love is the most beautiful, most difficult thing to do in this world. And so the anatomical heart for me really represents life, in that, and also, within, when you look at an anatomical heart, the veins to me almost look like roots. The grounding, almost, like a beautiful tree. It has all of those different components. And so for me, like, it absolutely, like, it needed to have the heart. And we went back and forth a little bit, with the graphics designer, and the editor told me, he said, I think I got it. And when I saw the heart with that addition of the flower behind it, like, that connection for me back to our ancestors and back to our earth, back to the land, which I sometimes can feel such a strong connection to. And then that arrow going through, like the arrow going through it, like, when I saw it, I knew. And it took a couple of covers to get there. And also we went back just a little bit of back and forth about where the cover, where the title was going to go. And so both Dave and Shelley, who are the publishers and my very, very dear friends, it kind of liked it, like, not over it. But for me, that's like the beyond the surface. Like, people talk about restorative practices, actually, all these, inclusion, equity, diversity, restore, all these things. Like, if you look at them at the surface, and, like, people talk about, oh, that didn't work, because you're not going deep. And so, like, for me, it was just so representative of, like, we're going, like, no, it's here. You have to go deep within. So it took a minute to get there. The colors, like, everything about it, I think, is just so beautiful.
It is. And this is like superficial and vain, but I'm going to tell you what I did for you, Marisol. So the 2 days that I've been on the shows with you, I've coordinated my top with the book cover. So the first day I wore a blue top to match the blue side of the heart. Today I'm wearing red, and I was like, I probably got missed, and so I'm going to tell you what I did for you. Okay.
I love that.
You're like, I didn't catch it at all. Okay. Okay. It's just these little silly ways, right? That, like, I just love you, right? And it's the best way that I can connect to, not one of the best way. It's a way. It's a fun way to connect to you and to this piece. All right. We are running out of time, but I want to hear from everyone, because that's just how I am. We have to go in a circle. So I'm going to challenge us wordy writers, to say, of all the words you wrote in this book, what's the one word that was the most important, and why? And only you describe it in a sentence. So I will model it, and then this will be how we kind of, exit out of here. So silence. Within active listening, there are times when you have to listen without saying a word, and to be able to convey and listen to your whole body is something that I think we don't do enough. So silence is my word. Whoever wants to jump in. The one word you wrote in the book that's the most important word, and why?
I want to say healing, because this journey in life is about healing.
Thank you, Pedro.
I was gonna say healing.
It's okay. It's
I'm serious. Yes, because healing is about connection and self. And it's that back and forth between the self and the healing and the community. So
Thank you, Carolyn.
I'm just gonna say the word can, like CAN. Because like we can. This is possible. This way of being, the transformation that's needed, the healing that's needed, the connection that's needed, it can happen. And the other word I'm going to pick is us. Like we're the ones that that have to make it happen and make the choice to do our work and to have these types of conversations that we're having, right? And Enjolie, you had said earlier, something just to the effect of like, like the struggle that I described in getting the book made. Like, I don't think that's unusual. I think that we all struggle that way. We just don't talk about it, and we don't share it, and that keeps us trapped. That keeps us in pain. That keeps us disconnected. And I think that we just need to make the choice.
Thank you, everyone. To each and every one of you, I hope that you have a beautiful weekend. It's so nice to just have this be the beginning of getting connected to you, Pedro, and the beginning of getting connected to you, Carolyn. And to both of you, I want to tell you thank you for how much you support and care for my friend, my comadre, my sister. I always say I'm not a selfish friend. So my friends that do them right and take care of them, like I love you all, Marisol, thank you. Like, there aren't enough words. Like the words don't matter. Like they're important, but they don't matter. I know that you feel my heart connection to you, and that there's a very little I could say that would explain how I feel for you. So just appreciate you endlessly. I want to tell the rest of you, I appreciate all of you too. Everyone in the comments, like, forgive me if I didn't put it up there, like, because you all are, commenting quite a bit, and that's amazing. And thank you. Thank you for all the support that you gave all of the authors here, right? Because as Marisol said, this process is not easy, and we are very real and transparent about what it is. And so now go get the book. Go share this video. Go share the links to purchase the book, and you can even get it quickly so you can read it this weekend, as you're experiencing your downtime. And I hope that you get some good rest, that you pay attention to the healing that's needed in your family, the things that you can do, and the people who make up us in your household. All right, everyone, have a lovely weekend. Thank you, everyone.
I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you.
I'm going to keep it on so you can all say bye. Okay.
I love you so much.
Bye, guys. Have a great weekend.
I love you. Bye.
Everyone.
I love you.
Guys.
Bye-bye.
Good one.